And we're up. Just waiting to see if I get a notification that I'm live. Didn't get one yet, but okay. So now we're going to put back together the GPTOYS S918 Drift Shark, the 126 scale drift car. I took it apart in a previous video, pretty detailed. I think it's like an hour and a half or something, quite long. And this should go much quicker, just going to use the instructions to put it back together. So I'm going to start by putting all these components out of view of the camera so I have room to work. This is a new thing I'm trying, of teardowns of RC cars. This is the first one I tried. Didn't see too many people doing full teardowns of RC cars. Of course, I've seen lots of people do full teardowns of phones, computers, all sorts of electronics, and that's mainly what my setup is for right here, for working on electronics. But I also like RC cars. I am not a good reviewer, so if you want a review of this GPTOYS S918 Drift Shark car, go on YouTube, and there are a few people on there who have really great reviews. That's about got everything out of the way. Clean off the work area. A lot of just stuff fell out of the car while I was disassembling it. You know, fragments of plastic and some grease, oil. And I think we're ready to go. So the differentials, which are already assembled, I took one of them apart in my previous video, but they're identical. You get two of these. So I have them assembled. The shocks, yep, I have them all assembled also. I didn't take them fully apart because it looks like here it kind of snaps together, and I didn't want to take the risk of popping it out or breaking it. So I have those components. Same thing with the universal joint. I did not take them fully apart. Right now I have them inside the knuckle. So the joints are in there. They're all assembled. This, what they call the drive shaft assembly, I did not take that apart because it's quite pressed together. These gears are pressed onto this metal shaft. They even sell it that way. Servo, I did disassemble the servo. I took it apart, but I think, yep, I took the servo completely apart, so you can see that in my other video. What do they call these? Shock absorber brackets. I also have them assembled already. I think I took them apart. I took one of those apart and measured it in my disassembly video. Gearbox. The gearboxes are assembled. I did disassemble one of them, one of the arms on the gearbox, but I left them together there. Tires. I did not disassemble the tires completely. I have a feeling they may be glued on. They look a little shiny. I'm not too sure, so I didn't want to completely take them apart. Left tire, front tire assembly, left tire, right tire assembly again. Then we start with where I pretty much left off here for the main assembly. So let's throw the manual over here. Just going to wipe down the frame. And first thing is to assemble the front gearbox. That would be this one. And the front bumper, which is the smaller bumper. So that all gets to be assembled there. When I disassembled, I put most of the screws back in where they belong, so I wouldn't lose them or confuse them with others. I think most of the screws on this car are the same. Okay, so that looks right. Since I didn't screw it down, it all came apart. Okay, see if I can hold this together. Notice in my other in my teardown, I kept calling the screws plastic. Well, they're metal screws, but they're plastic style, meant for screwing into plastic. I mentioned that that's pretty good for not being able to back out. You know, if you have metal screws that are machine screws that are meant to screw into metal or aluminum, there's a probability that they back out and you have to put them Loctite. You want to make sure that the screws are snug and that the manufacturer, assembler added some Loctite to it so they don't back out. Being that these screws are the plastic style and they're going in the plastic, the odds of them backing out are very slim. Try to clean up some of the oil and grease on the car. Alright, so that was the front gearbox and bumper. Let's grab the back gearbox and the back bumper. Take the screws out. We'll see while I'm putting this back together if there's anything that can be improved or any thoughts I have on stuff that can be done. Yeah, for a RC car that's $50. I don't know how much improvements you would want to do. Probably just want to play with it until it breaks. But never know. I mean, so far with the things that I've added here, nothing. This is a little difficult to hold together. I think I may just screw down the first screw just to keep it from falling apart. Then we add the other 3 screws. I guess it can be shifted one. You can make a longer wheelbase. So let's see where they recommend. They're saying to shorten it so the screws go to the closest one to the center of the chassis. So that's where I'm putting it. Could make a longer wheelbase, but I'm assuming that the center shaft, the drive shaft, isn't long enough to do that. So if you're putting this vehicle back together, make sure that you're putting it with the shortest wheelbase on this rear. Because I don't think there is a way to make the drive shaft longer that connects the front differential gearbox to the rear gearbox. I'm going to tighten these screws. Okay. Looks good so far. Nothing that I see needs improvement. Let's move next. Next, we want to add the differentials. I'm assuming that's what they call them. Sometimes I should just check to make sure that I'm using the right terminology. So yeah, they call them the differentials. So add the 2 differentials, add the center gearbox, or the drive shaft, drive assembly. Let's see what they call that. Transmission, main shaft, and the motor. So I'm going to add the motor and the drive shaft assembly. Let's take a look at that. Got some grease. These are the ones that come from the bottom, the screws. So I'm going to remove these 2 screws. Prepare this for being mounted. Let me wipe off some of this grease or oil. I would like to know what the correct thing to do is for. I think they added this grease or the oil for the plastic on plastic, because all the bearings are sealed. They're sealed and lubricated internally, so there would be no reason for the bearings. So I'm assuming it's for the plastic gears. So let me look at the manual. How's this supposed to go? They have this, and then the gearbox goes like that. And that bearing goes in there. They got 2 pins that are locating. I was just looking to see. I mean, it's spinning fairly freely. And that just might be the alignment of the front to the back and the metal. So I think it's good. Let's add these 2 screws to hold down this drive shaft assembly. Next is the motor. So that spins fairly well. I mean, it's not like loose. I think you would have to check. My guess would be it would be the location of all this up and down to get the shaft, and then how the bearings are seated. If they're a little twisted in either, vertically or horizontally, all that's gonna make a little difference. But for the most part, it spins smoothly, just not freely. Next is the motor. Is that correct? Yeah. So the motor gets held down with 2 screws. Once again, they got some oil. Two screws but no pins, so they're using the screws to line the motor up. That means there's probably not any real adjustment. See if I can get the screw started so I can keep the motor from falling. Okay, one screw, get the other one in there. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten these down, assuming that there's no adjustment, and then flip it over. Yeah, so I would say that's good. I mean, the shaft's spinning, a little bit harder than it was before, which makes sense. The motor's attached, but I don't feel any binding. Seems like the motor located in the correct location, so everything kind of, so far spinning freely. Well, I would say smoothly, not freely. It doesn't just you can't just spin it and it keeps spinning. So we did this. The differentials. Here are the differentials. They also have some oil. Yeah, and even if these gears need to be lubricated, I wonder if, some thicker grease would be better so it doesn't get all over all the components. Not that it matters, but just when you're working on it, or when you start running the car, it gets spread everywhere. So they show this differential going this way, and they show this differential going the opposite way. So I think we probably need to screw the cap on to see, everything runs smoothly, but for the most part it feels good. After we put the differentials in, the caps. Boom, boom. Let's see what they call them. Gearbox housing covers, gearbox housing caps, gearbox cover. Yep, gearbox cover. So I know that they look the same, so I think they're identical. I will do the back first. Remove these 2 screws. And the back has these special rod connectors so that the back wheels don't turn. Okay, they snap in nicely. Everything still feels smooth. Yeah, the gearbox, it's a nice design. Everything locates good. All the components fit in there well. Everything's snug. And it's a really good design for that. Assembly. And that, once again, $50. It's thought out. Okay. Now, since these pieces have machine threads on them, they're not plastic meant for plastic. You gotta be a little careful with these because you can over tighten these and strip out the plastic. If that happens, I guess you could put some maybe some silicone or something in there just to keep it tight. Any kind of glue or something would be really difficult to take apart later. If you put some silicone on there, you'd be able to let it cure for 24 hours and then it would stay together. And it would also be relatively easy to take it apart in the future. But definitely not some super glue. That would be a nightmare to take apart later. Once again, they showed a really nice fit here. Nice. Now I guess it goes also for the plastic screws. I mean, you don't want to really over tighten them either. There's a little more forgiveness there because they go deeper into the plastic sideways. So you can get away with making them a little tighter, but since they're not going to back out because they're inside plastic, I would recommend just going, a little bit more than snug. So now, everything still spins smoothly. Once again, not freely. As we keep adding components, it's getting a little bit tighter. But no binding. I don't hear anything unusual. So after the gearboxes are assembled, next I want the lower arms, which I think I still have them assembled. Oh, the upper arms. So they want all 4 upper arms assembled now. I have them over here. All 4 identical. All 4 screws are identical. Don't have to worry about mixing anything up. They look symmetrical. So the only difference is you can see this round hole for the ejector pin when it was manufactured. So I guess if anything, I will put that down just for a little consistency. Now these screws are made for plastic because they have a nice pitch to them. They have a nice pitch, but once again, don't want to over tighten this. For these, I would say probably just snug. Once you get down in there, just turn it like a 1/16 of a turn, eighth of a turn, just to get it snug. my teardown video, you'll see I measure all the screws. So if you're watching this video and want to find that you need to replace one of the screws, I have dimensions for them. I don't know if you'll be able to find them all. Maybe I'll have to get them from the manufacturer, but being that these screws are special, I'm going to assume you probably could find them. And I wasn't consistent because I put the ejector side up. And since I made a point of saying put the ejector side down for consistency, let's continue with that. Now, if you're assembling or screwing together something for the first time, one of the things I notice that people do who don't have a lot of experience is they don't really push down on the screw. So even in this case, I'm trying to put pressure horizontally. It's best to do vertically, and you want to make sure that you're putting some pressure down. You do not want the tip spinning inside the screw. These tips are very hard, and the better quality, the harder the tip is. So if you're spinning and it's moving around inside the head of the screw, it's just eating away material and easily can become stripped. Also, you want to look for the right tip. You want to make sure that your screw tip is seated in there well, and it's not just hitting at the bottom or hitting at the top, that it's making a good contact inside the head of the screw. So the upper arms installed. See what they call them. Upper swing arms. Yep, installed. Next, they would like for us to add the shock absorber bracket, and they're adding these smaller ones, rear ball head pull rods. So shock absorber, we should mounts. We have, where are they at? We have 2 of them. Do they look the same? Are they the same? I would say they are identical. So I wouldn't worry about mixing them up. Now the screw is actually threaded into both parts. So I'm just going to make the screws flush on this part and then hold it up. So that way, when I start screwing in, which I have a key in there, so yeah, I would say just make them flush first and then assemble. Let's do the rear. It's the same thing. I'm just going to make sure the screws are flush. Push it into there and then hold it snug with my thumb. Okay, snug. Let's see what they have for us next. Looks like we did that. Oh, I have one of these snapped on. So hard to tell if there's a particular side to these. So I'm just going to take a chance and just pick one. They have these ejector pins for where the part got pushed out of the mold, so I'm going to push them. I'm going to keep both of them up just for consistency and If I have a problem, then I'll flip both of them. If for some reason I put it in upside down. Next, they want us to put together the tires and the, what do they call them? The universal joints and the knuckles. I'm assuming they're called rear steering cups. So, and I guess rear steering cup and front steering cup. So anyway, we're gonna do this part. Now there's 4, and they're all identical from what I remember. I got some oil on them, which this doesn't make much sense at all why they would have any oil, because there's 2 bearings, everything's spinning on the bearing. Oh, I guess inside the little pivot, I mean, maybe they would want some lubrication, so I guess that would be okay. So this, and then push down. Okay. So I pushed it down to the lower arm first. Now I'm going to do this to keep it square, and then that was pretty tight. Okay. So that's for the rear, where there's no turning. You know, you want the tires to stay square to the vehicle, straight. So we'll do the same thing with the other side. Make sure to put the shaft in first, then put it down, then push. Okay. Now I think I'm going to do the arm, the upper arm first. Now this was a little tight to push in. Yeah, and then this one. Okay. Let's look down from the top and see if it looks pretty square. Yeah, I would say not bad. I mean, there's a little bit of flex inside here, but for the most part, it looks straight, square, whatever. However we want to define it. Okay, let's do the front. Fronts are going to be different because they're going to have the arms. So actually, out there. So, correction. There are front and rear of these. So if you were to put the wrong ones, you cannot. They are all different. So you need to be careful. I guess I just got lucky and picked them up. So this is the front. I'm going to put the shaft in first, then push down. Then do the upper arm. Okay, the other side. Put the shaft in first. Okay, so now we have the steering, the front steering arms, upper and lower snapped in, installed. Where were we at? We were on, and then they wanted the tires. They mounted the tires on, which, I don't know, I didn't do that part. They mounted the tires to the knuckles earlier. I mean, even now, I don't know if I want to add the tires. So let's continue without adding the tires. Now we want to add the rear battery mount. Well, here, they had the front, then the rear. Oh, well, the front's already installed. The rear's already installed. It's the front that now needs to be installed. The rear battery mount is part of the drive shaft assembly. They have two locations for the battery, which is interesting. Now they're all, oh yeah, they're giving, yeah, you could. So is this the longest or the shortest one? It looks like they're doing the shortest one. Yeah, but the wires didn't sit really flush, so I'm actually wondering if the longer one would be better. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to see if I can get this thread started. I'm having a look here. Finally, got the thread started. So like I said, I went with the longer setup so that I had more room for the wires, because I noticed when it was on the closer setup, the battery really didn't sit flat because the wires were pushing up against the housing. So yeah, okay, so we did that. Servo, steering servo. The steering servo gets trapped in between this housing here. So we have 3 screws. This was probably one of the few areas I saw that it wasn't assembled correctly. Because they have this pin here, and it's supposed to go down inside a hole, but judging by the way it was bent, it looked like it didn't go into the hole. So let's see. Let me find out which way this goes again. Okay, goes like that. And this pin, so there's no thread there, no screw. So it's tight, and I could see if somebody wasn't paying attention, they could have not pressed it down in there and then actually, since it's in there, maybe I'll put it down without it falling apart. Wow, not having a look here. I'm gonna snug that one, and then I'll have an easier time getting the other two in. So there's the pin. I just pressed it in there. Okay, three holes, servo, and then it goes up, right? I mean, I don't think there's really any way other than up, but maybe I put it in upside down. I didn't really think about that. No, it goes up. So now they tell you to install the battery. Let's see which side. They have it sitting this way in the picture, and they have the battery. I think it went like this. I would wonder if we can get it to. We need 2 clips. If you really want it tight, I guess it's flexible enough to hit that bottom hole. Yeah, I guess maybe that's even what it's intended to do. Make it nice and snug so the battery doesn't move around. I don't think it's definitely not going to come out of there, but I kind of did just make it as tight as I could to form around the battery. Now this time it's in there snugly. Now, I don't know if these wires have to be on the other side or not, but we'll find out. I think in the way it came from the manufacturer, they were on the other side. Now we put in this brace, which was probably the part that looked the worst from the manufacturer. So let's take a look at why that is. Because it's bent. I mean, it's bent right across here. So yeah, I mean, I straightened it a little. Looks like there's a little bend here. Maybe we can do that. Yeah, I guess it's better now. And they want us to add the receiver first. So let's take a look at how this all goes. In the picture, they have the front bumper this way. Then they show this going like that. Now let's remove the screws. There's a lot of adjustment for the location of the box that holds the all-in-one transmitter, electronic speed control. And there's something else that we have to do that the instructions weren't very clear on, is a cap for the gearbox for the main pinion gear. So let's see, some oil, grease on here, take that off. I had to remove the clip for the battery. So I'm going to leave that off and then see how much room we have once we get it assembled. So it has 4 pins in the front. Is that right? Something seems wrong. They have this screw hole right there. What's up with that? Is that why it was bent? Because of this? What is that? See, that sticks up right there. maybe that's why it was bent. I mean, I don't know what goes inside that hole. I don't think anything. We're looking at the car correctly? No, we're not. Right? Let's see. Okay. I think I was looking at it wrong. Alright, so that's the brace. Now it goes once I got it all oriented correctly. Now they added this. They added the box. Let's take the screws off. This would actually go this way. Ah, don't off camera. Let me move it. So I can actually see where it was from the out of the box where the screws were located, so I'll just put them back to where they were. I don't think there'd be any advantage to moving it around. Now this is where it got a little interesting because there was different screws. That one looked like it could have been a pan head. These are a little snug, so I'm having to push down on it. Get them to go in there. And then I guess they tried to countersink the aluminum so they would sit. But probably could have just used panhead screws. Maybe they didn't want to add many different types of screws for the kit. But yeah, these are definitely tight. Definitely want to push down, not strip anything out. Let's see about getting that battery. See if I can get. Alright, so still was able to get that in there. See, I think the battery's fine like that. So you can see how I was still able to get that tight. Everything looks snug so far. Down to the last few steps. Now it wants us to add the steering and the shocks. So the long one's going to be for the bottom. Ah, did I put those in upside down? Yes, I did. So yeah, these are upside down. I put them in the wrong way. these were tough to get off last time. So you probably really want to make sure that you put them in correctly. So this would go there, and this would go like that. No, wait, come on. How does this work? So yeah, the one closest to the servo is just going to have it facing down. The one furthest from the servo is going to have two of them. One up to connect the servo, and then one down to connect it to the other steering knuckle. Okay. So you want to slide this through, because I remember there's no room. I want to do this without. Make life a little bit easier. So now we have both steering arms connected. Now we need to connect to the servo. I don't know if I'll be able to get my tool inside there, but we'll try it. Okay, I was able to do it. Okay. Looks good, although a little bit out of square. Maybe not bad. Shocks. Now, if I remember correctly, the side with the shim in it goes up. Looks like they may snap in easier in one direction. Not too sure about that, but got them all in. The top. I'll go around and do the bottoms. Next, is there anything next? Yeah, the body mounts, right? Yeah, body posts and the wheels. So let's put the body posts on. This is the front, and the front gets the one that jetties out like this. It was the third from the top. Okay, got the third from the top. As we're wrapping up here, I want to thank you for watching. If you watched the whole thing, these are currently listed on Amazon for around $50. There's an affiliate link in the description if you want to use that. If you want a review on the car, definitely go check out other people on YouTube. This is just the teardown. Thumbs up if you would like to see me do some more teardowns and reverse teardowns of RC cars. I saw lots of reviews and people doing it much better than I can, but I thought I had this setup here that I use for electronics. And I thought it would be cool to see a more detailed teardown of RC cars. You know, they're long, but it may be helpful to somebody to understand how the car is built, what areas may need to be improved, if something breaks, how to get to it. Yeah, so that was the whole idea here, and I only do live streaming. I don't do any video editing. So if you subscribe, you'll get, and you hit the bell, you'll get notifications when I go live. I think we can put the tires on now. Tires have a little key, a little flat, so they don't spin. And they have this interesting little setup with the screw and a shim or spacer. They get a little snug, so you want to push down. So because there's a flat on them, you want to spin the wheel until it falls down in there. It may not fall, but at least it'll kind of lock, and then you can press it down the rest of the way. So yeah, I get to use this today. Once I put the tire on, I'll just power it up real quick, make sure it works. Although I couldn't see why it wouldn't, but just in case I did something wrong, then we can catch it in the video for reference. So we're still an hour, huh? So it's going to be shorter than the teardown, but still quite a long time. Okay. Snug. So there we are, assembled. Notice the shim. Maybe the shim should be faced out. Spin that. Because it looks like it could potentially hit something, so we'll just make sure that they're out that way. One, they all feel the same. Nothing feels different between them. This one feels slightly different, but that's because it's got two arms connected to it. Let's plug in the rest. So you got the motor, which gets plugged into here. Got a nice little twist to it. The servo. Looks like, how would it be keyed in? The pins look like they're going to the bottom, so I would guess it would look like this. That's the servo, right? No, that's a 3-wire. Yeah, it's 3, and that's 4. That don't make any sense. Why? Oh, the servo goes here. Okay. So no, it's got a little twist to it. Car's in sitting flat, which I'm not too sure why. You know, it does look like this lower arm is rubbing. Let's just make sure I put that together right. Yeah. Okay. And then the motor. Let me grab the controller. Turn the controller on before I hit the motor. Controller on. Battery plugged in. Okay. All put together. Let's turn off the car. Turn off the controller. I'll put the body on. Small. Did I do it right? No. Man, I did it wrong. What did I do? So I guess the car's sitting this way. That bumper is a little deceiving. But that is the front of the car. So, yeah, put that on wrong. Most of the time I've been using the bumper to decide what's the front and what's the back, but in that picture it's a little hard to tell. And I put it on wrong. Yeah, so apologies if someone watched the video. Used my earlier location for the body mounts. Okay, so I can put the body on now. Grab our body clips. So I'm going with the ones that are really close to the body. Make it tight. So yeah, thanks for watching, and thumbs up if you want more videos like this of teardowns and reverse teardowns of RC cars. There's our final thing. Thanks.